You are now listening to Carlie's Couch. I'm Cece Fierce.
And I'm Lextopia. In this episode, we discuss guilt and how it may be playing a part in your life, whether you're aware or unaware. Tune in.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, how are you?
How you
Hope
feeling?
you're doing well. I don't know if I expected an answer, but I'm sure everybody was like, yeah, I'm good. Whoa. So I'm going to just act like that's what happened.
That is. I heard it. I heard it. We appreciate y'all. You know, it feels good that y'all are cheering us on. Okay, well, anyways, what we talking about today, Lex?
Nah, it does. So, man, today we're talking about the part that guilt can play in your life. And whether you know it or not, guilt is actually an emotion. And I think when we talk about emotions, guilt isn't really one that sticks out or, that you necessarily, or for me, I guess, it's not one of the top ones on the list that you think about,
No.
Like especially for thinking negative, it's usually like sad, angry, frustrated, disappointed, things like that, jealous. But guilt can be something that is an underlying factor to a lot of what may be going on with you. And so it's just something that when I heard, I thought about it and was like, oh, that is interesting because there's a lot of factors to it that, can cause you to look more at that lane instead of maybe some other places where you're looking to try to understand yourself or explore why you feel the way you feel about particular things.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to talk about, guilt, what it is, how it can be how it can affect you, and how to recognize if you're holding on to that or not and what to do about it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because whenever you just said like guilt is an emotion, I'm like, I wouldn't think about it like that. But in that context, it really is.
Because what's an emotion? Just a feeling, right? A lot of things can be emotions.
That's true. That's true. But I think when I think of guilt, you think of, for me at least, I think of like really heavy, like guilt.
Like you just did something
big.
like
you did something bad, or like, you did something to somebody and it just weighs real heavy. And it's not something that I guess I think about people carrying around every day per se. But so it's interesting.
What is it? What do you call it when you've talked about, triggers?
Mm-hmm.
So, but when you think about, when we've talked about being triggered and triggers, I think sometimes whatever is triggering an emotion, that can probably be guilt, or there's guilt at the foundation of that.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what was like an to me that made me think about this and want to like look into it a little bit more. And so the way guilt shows up a lot of times is in these small micro bursts. So it's not necessarily that you're all the time like, oh man, literally feeling like you're guilty about a particular thing. But a symptom of it can be if you're having a lot of micro bursts. And what guilt is doing is guilt is always going to continuously go off until you fix the problem. And whether that's you saying all day, like this is something for me maybe, is, oh man, I know I need to send an email. Like something like that. Even something like that, that's you expressing guilt. And your brain, if you notice, and you're like, I'm gonna make this lunch first. But it's like you're putting it off, but it keeps popping up, right? It keeps coming like, oh man, I gotta send an email. Or oh man, I gotta call my mom back. Oh man, I gotta call my mom back. Oh man, I gotta call my mom back. And it doesn't stop until you do the thing. But that's an example of what could be more a signal of guilt more than, what else would we have called that maybe?
I think like when I think of stuff like that, I'm like, oh, I'm procrastinating or I'm avoiding something. But if it is a continuation where it's like, oh man, I know I need to call that person back, or oh my God, this email, and it's just something so small. I think so often it gets pushed into like anxiety or maybe procrastination that we don't stop to look at the root, which is what I really like about this topic and about thinking through how guilt manifests. And it looks like other things, but very much at the root, it's because you feel guilty about something, and these are the fruits of that guilt.
Exactly. You said that much better than I was trying to put it together. So the way that can look in patterns can be if you have like an irritable pattern, if you're moody, if you're a person who tends to be hard on yourself or hard on others. And what I found very interesting and what does make a lot of sense when you read about it is the type of people who tend to be guilty, which maybe before this conversation, you didn't think of yourself as such. I didn't think of myself as such. And I don't know about you, but what type of people tend to fall into this category?
Yeah, and I wouldn't either. Because we talk about our episode topics before, and a lot of times we think about things that we're going through in our own life or about a podcast that we heard or something that we read and, use that as inspiration and how it applies to ourselves. And so when you're talking about guilty, I'm like, oh, I don't really carry around guilt like that. And then I started reading all of what this can look like and how guilt can manifest. And I was like, oh, damn, that kind of sounds like me, like almost textbook me. So people who tend to feel guilty, they can appear to be more sympathetic and often put themselves in other people's shoes.
Yeah. And the people who are guilt prone, and maybe I could say it that way, because you might not be feeling guilty per se, but people who are guilt prone tend to be the people that others think are good leaders and great leaders, and it's because of that they're what you said, they're sympathetic. They think about the consequences of their actions before they act because they don't want to have to think about that over and over, and they know they are going to think about that thing and they're going to punish themselves with that.
Mm-hmm. They also tend to treasure their morals and be very morally sound and guided, like a lot of their decisions.
Less prone to lie, cheat, or behave immorally. And an example of that is if you're doing a deal, you notice how a lot of times we'll talk about how, oh man, that business person or those rich people, all they cared about was making the money. They didn't care about, misplacing people and things like that. That's more coming from a guilty person where if somebody's offering you like, oh, here's $1,000 for your services, and you usually would just charge $500, you might feel bad about that instead of just taking the opportunity to actually make money. So a lot of times it can be in that form too, where you're kind of not letting yourself flourish a little bit too.
I think these are great. And again, it's just a self-check to see if you're more guilt prone and possibly how it could look in your life. Also, people who are guilt prone are more likely to make better employees because people who think less about the future results of their actions are more likely to be late, steal, or be rude to clients. So if you're, I guess what this is trying to say is maybe when you're not thinking about how it might impact other people or how it impacts things in the future, like if you're very present focused.
If you're very present focused, then what? Which one are you saying?
More guilt prone because you're not thinking or. But to me, this more sounds like a little bit selfish because if you're always late, if you're stealing, or if you're rude to clients, you're not thinking about how that impacts other people or the long term effects of your
because you don't care.
Yeah, because you don't.
You don't care as much. And so another good point to this, because as you look at it, it does. I don't think it means that if you're a person who is a leader, if you're a person who is moral or likes to be on time, that I don't think that means you are guilty. Let's not say that, but you're probably more guilt prone in that if you look at your motivations for particular things in general, you're probably that person who doesn't want to upset people or upset the status of things, etc. Because of whatever in your past or life has kind of trained you to not want to feel that way. And so thinking about that is like, dang, I feel like I can identify that. You say you feel like, I can kind of identify with some of those characteristics of a person who may be guilt prone. But then it's like, all right, so what does that mean you're guilty about? Like, what is there to feel guilty about?
I think, and I was like doing some reading and also just thinking about my life and what there are. I think there's a lot of things that happen, like maybe when we're little that kind of impact how we, like childhood traumas, essentially how things can impact how we react in relationships and situations with teachers, with employers, with different things. Like when we're smaller, like one I was reading about is like maybe survivor's guilt. So thinking about like if you had someone pass away and y'all were doing the same thing and maybe they didn't make it, but you did, or they didn't make it out, but you did. And so now you might unknowingly or subconsciously be carrying around all this guilt, and it could be affecting all of your decisions in other relationships because you haven't dealt with that feeling.
Yeah, I think there is 5 or 6 categories of types of guilt, and survivor's guilt is one of them. And that is a reason to feel, well, not justifying it, but a reason to feel guilty is if, man, you're doing better than other people. Other things that you can feel guilty about are things that you said you were going to do to yourself or to other people and you didn't do them. And that could be something as minor as you said you was going to get up earlier and you haven't. and think about how for weeks we'll talk about, oh man, I'm still trying to do this, or I'm still trying to be a better planner, or this or that. And that's you running through feelings of guilt. So that may not seem as serious as something like that. It may be coming from a huge trauma, like if a family member touched you inappropriately, and that's something you feel guilty about, like there's shame around that, and you may be more prone to snap at people, or there's something going on that you can't quite connect the dots and explain, but it comes from a place of, man, you feel shame that why would that happen to me? Why did something, or what is it about me? You might be blaming yourself, whatever. And it may not even be like at the forefront of your mind, but when you dig deep, it may kind of go back to something like that. So there are huge things. And then there's small things like that time they laughed at you because you misspelled a word at the spelling bee.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, you may just be like, oh, my parents was there and I just never want to embarrass them again. Again, these things, I feel like they sound mad dramatic, but when you really peel back, like, why do I feel bad about the things I feel bad about? Who is it, or what external circumstance is it that you're trying to change, or that you're trying to prove something to, or whatever? I feel like you can always kind of go back to something at some point.
Yeah, my roommate and I were talking, and I don't even know, because we weren't even talking about like this episode or anything, but we were talking about how when we were little, we both went to private schools when we were younger, and how they had mad bread. Like, they were rich. Everybody else who went there was rich, but, you know, we were on scholarships and all these things. And so there was a lot of shame in, like, our parents' cars when they picked us up, because we would get teased. And we didn't even realize that that was a thing to be, like, shameful about until someone told us. And then you carry that around until you realize, like, wait, that shit doesn't matter. Or until you process it.
What do you think is the relationship between guilt and shame? Is shame the same?
I don't think so. I think that they're different, but I don't want to speak because I'm not quite sure what the difference is. But I think guilt can lead to shame
because you feel guilty about not having certain things, or about being in this space. You're carrying around shame, around a particular thing. So for you guys listening, think about what types of things might kind of snap you out of your mood or whatever. And then here's some other ideas of things that could be going on that can let you know if you're suffering from guilt. One is frequently being in and out of a bad mood. And I think it says in and out because, just like you said before, it's kind of in swings. Like, you may be fine, but then you're constantly being triggered by things, whether it's yourself and your brain going off. Remember when I said, like, you're going to keep getting that reminder about a thing? So it's your own self that might kind of bring that on, or it could be external circumstances too.
And when those triggers happen, or those moments, like, it distracts you so much that you kind of just tune out. Like, if you've ever been there but not been present, like you're completely on a different planet, like that could also be a sign, like with these triggers, like, and maybe it's not guilt that's at the root of it, maybe it's something else, but if there are, continuous times where you just find yourself completely blacking out or going somewhere else, like maybe that's a sign.
Yeah, and then the next one is basically like being a hater. And I've experienced all these before, but I've been like that too, where that person in the group where everybody's kind of joking, but then they say something, but it's like, it's not really a joke. Like, they really just wanted to say that shit. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like they just wanted to say some smart shit, and it's just like, all right, bro. You could tell something's going on with him. I make fun of my brother all the time because he for a while he didn't even notice it, but I was like, yo, you always do this. But if I say like, so you trying to make spaghetti tonight? He'll be like, oh, what kind of sauce you got? And I'm making this whole thing up, but I might say, oh, there's some ragu in there. I hate ragu. Da 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 da. Like, he'll go off and like, bro, do you realize every time if something like is never just like, you can't have a conversation. It's like all the way like, I hate that thing, and he does it all the time. And so I always get on him. I'm like, yo, I could tell when you're like in a mood, or I could tell when something else is going on externally, because it's like you always kind of like just jump to that space where it's like real extreme about a seemingly small thing. Which, sorry, I kind of went into the next thing about exploding in response, but that's to criticism. But kind of being explosive in response to different things where it's like you feel like it's your job to like bring people down to size or bring you back down to reality, or because you feel some kind of way about something. And then since I kind of already went to the next one, if people criticize you and you struggle to hear that or listen to that without kind of exploding too, things like that.
And another one is being paranoid that other people are out to like get you or out to get the best of you. Like, if you're always questioning people's motives and intentions and it's really hard to let people in, that could also be a sign.
Yeah, and typically reflective of how you feel you would be doing to other people as well. So when you think about all of those things, then why does that keep you from being successful? Like, why is that such an issue?
I think with anything that hasn't been dealt with or addressed, that are root issues of people, because we all have them. Like, we've all had big trauma, little trauma, all these things that have happened. Whenever we're not actively addressing these things, like, they can stop us from becoming the best version of ourselves and allowing us to be successful. You could be self-sabotaging yourself. So for example, maybe you're more guilt prone or carrying around all these feelings of shame, and so you're never replying back to emails for people. You're just like, oh man, I always need to get back to them. Oh man, I always need to get back to them. Like, it can become a habit, and that very much could impact every area of your life.
Why is it such a perpetual thing though? It sounds weird, but it makes sense. Or I feel like we can always see that in ourselves. Like when you feel some kind of way, or like even with your email example, you keep telling yourself like, oh, I need to do this thing, but then why don't you?
Man, if I had the answer to that.
Why do you want to keep feeling guilty?
Exactly. Maybe because subconsciously you believe like you're carrying around this guilt and you're punishing yourself. And so every time that you don't send that email, you know, like that little alarm is going to go off in your head, and you get that whole like terrible feeling again. I was reading an article, and it was saying that people who are guilt prone, actually their brain sends out like electric shocks to themselves to make yourself feel bad because you don't believe you're supposed to be feeling good or that you're supposed to be successful.
And I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I was going to go into, that it's an addiction in your body. Because, and then I kind of tested it because in a different sense, not with the guilt, but like with your body. So I have an issue where like I just cannot sit still, or I tend to not sit still, and I have to really like try. And I notice like when people are talking, when things are happening, like I'll have to do something. Right now my nose really is itching though, but like I have to do something, or like move or whatever, or like twitch a little bit just to like, for some reason, right? And so even when I try to meditate or try to do something, I was reading or listening to something, I don't know anymore, kind of similar to this, but it's like your body's gonna try, be like, yo, what are you doing seeping into this like chill state, like do something. And then I tried it, and I tried to sit still, and I noticed like, yo, all of a sudden everything, like my big toe started like hurting out of nowhere, like shit just started feeling weird behind my ear, and like I was like, I want to scratch, I want to do something. But I like tried to work through it, and I still, at some point it kept getting worse and worse. I was like, damn, like I had to do it. And I was like, they got me. But in the same way as Carlie was saying with guilt, there literally is certain things that's like shooting off in your body. Our bodies are so crazily amazing. But like there's really something shooting off that says, yo, this is how you feel comfortable being. And so what are you doing coming out of that? And so I think it's a challenge to recognize that and be aware of it. But your body is kind of addicted to that feeling. So maybe self-sabotage is just us being too familiar with what we know and claiming that and feeling like we need to stay there.
And doing things to keep ourselves in this perpetual state of lowness. And I think some of that can also manifest in maybe our perspectives. Like if you just got a really big new client and you're like, yeah, but it was 5,000 under. It's not that great. And if you always feel yourself kind of taking yourself down or stepping things back or trying to minimize what's going on in your life, like maybe you're trying to keep yourself at this low level. But why?
But also research found that being critical of yourself doesn't actually increase accountability, and it doesn't increase success. And that forgiveness more so increases that. So they said taking a self-compassionate point of view on something that you messed up on is actually more likely to help you in the future. And I know we talked about in a past episode, because I talked about my friend who things lined up very well, and they were like, oh snap, like I don't even really want to go do certain things anymore because I see how when I was prepared, things were great. And so just to see that, you may be more likely to move through and be more productive and more successful. So now that we kind of have an idea of how it might feel and why it might be there, what are some things that we can do to now, be self-aware of this and then work through it?
That's a good question.
Or even I could specifically talk to you and we can walk through it if it's too up in the air right now. But
yeah,
going back to something I feel like that you always talk about, is what's the word? Following up.
Mm-hmm. Following through. Yep.
So if we use that as an example with following up, would you feel like that's something that falls in the pot of something you feel guilty about?
I think it can. I think I'm actually on the couch today, y'all. So for me, following through, I think there's a lot of reasons, and I've like examined why I struggle with following through with things, whatever it is, but especially with business opportunities. And at the root of it, I think there's part of me that wonders if I can do all of these things. So I think that's some imposter syndrome. I think part of it is guilt. Like, who am I to have all these amazing opportunities and be so great all the time? Especially like, when I do have people that I grew up with and we all made the same decisions and stuff, I just might not be working out for them. I think that guilt plays a little part in it, but I think there's so many other roots of that. And this whole journey to, self-love and self-actualization is really just taking time to dig all those things up. But I think guilt definitely plays a part of it. So part of it, like being survivors, like actually, making it out and becoming successful. And I'm still kind of researching now other ways it could be there.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you're successful?
I do.
And you feel like you might be feeling guilty about your opportunities that you have?
Some of them, yeah. Some of them for sure.
I feel like I can identify on, but it's not like the survivor's guilt though. If that's kind of more so where you're leaning with yours, but with a following up, there is something to thinking like, man, I don't know, can I really do all this? Or feeling guilty that, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's always going to be guilt that's at the bottom of that.
I don't think it is. And that's why I said I think it's part of it, but I don't think it's the main source. I think, my root is more so like I said, imposter syndrome and, thinking that I am enough to do all of these things and that I have enough skills and, just bringing that confidence into those spaces, but figuring out why there are some spaces where I'm not as confident, where people can't tell me anything.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like there's any space for guilt in like your relationships or building of relationships?
That's a really good question. I haven't thought about that.
I think about self-sabotaging, like dating or
because,
relationships.
I think more so shame. I don't think mine is guilt. And if it is guilt, I haven't explored why, but I would probably say shame because I haven't really ever been around a lot of successful relationships. Like I think there was one in my whole life that was successful. And so I just feel like with how I grew up and like my mom's relationship with my stepfather and all of the other relationships I've seen, there's just a lot of shame in not having an understanding of what healthy relationships can look like. And being worried that I'm going to do that to other people, but also having shame around like not having a great family structure.
So feeling guilty for things that haven't happened yet.
Yeah, or things that have nothing to do with me. Like my mom's decisions aren't mine, but I do carry guilt and shame around that.
Yeah, I can see that. Feeling guilty because you feel like I can't be a particular type of person or I can't give a certain thing. But I think because of that, we end up lowballing like who you're talking to or how that manifests as well. So anytime you're coming from that space, like it always just keeps you in that same space, essentially.
Which is why it's important to talk about these things.
Yeah. So going back to then how you can catch that and be more aware. I notice like if I'm in a bad mood or I get kind of irritable or whatever, I'm always trying to study myself and think about like, all right, why do I feel some kind of way right now? This shit is bright as hell. When I'm feeling like irritable or in a bad mood, I tend to ask myself like, why do I feel this way? And I may not have all the answers, but I can kind of tell like what stuff it's around, and then it's just keeping my eyes open to like what's going on with it. But one thing is, once you're aware of it, you'll start to catch it more. You can explore that and see if you can pin it down to something. And once you do, it's just recognizing and staying in the present with your day to day, that when something bad happens, like don't magnify it. I think a lot of times we'll take something, like if I was supposed to be waking up at 5 o'clock every day and then, I woke up at 9 a.m. instead one day, and using that to keep breaking yourself down like over and over and over for like the next few weeks. And it's like, it wasn't that serious. It was one day. So making sure that you are not magnifying things that when you do have a moment of this, or when things come up, ask yourself, like, how big is that really? And a lot of times it probably isn't.
Yeah, and what you said is, it's this process of continually breaking yourself down for a moment in time, not a habit, not a thing. You made a mistake, you did whatever, and it's like being perpetual, like thinking that because you did this thing that you are a bad person, and that, oh man, I'm just a horrible person. And so it's being able to, which is kind of the next one, disassociate yourself from your actions. Like, you aren't that one action. Like, you made a bad decision. You are not a horrible person. You're a person who made a bad decision. And I think that the real differentiator here is, like, if you continue, like, yeah, you can feel bad about things, but it's like your actions after that mistake. Like, how did you move forward to try to do better or be better, and to like forgive yourself and release that.
And actually, like, thinking you're a bad person, like, kind of does make you a bad person. And going back to the relationship thing, if I'm guilty, like, oh man, like, I know I'm not ready for a relationship, or I know I'm not this person. If those feelings make me treat you bad now, or I disappear because I'm like, I just, whatever. Like, even if I act like I'm doing it for you, like, you're just not being a good person. Like, it always goes like that. So you feeling some kind of way tends to lead to you, like, keep making more of that, because with you carrying around this guilt or shame, you want to keep bringing that around. So, like, it really does perpetuate that way. And then the goal to stop feeling guilty, the goal is to be more compassionate to yourself. So when you do have any feeling about, oh man, I should have this, or whoops, I didn't do that, or whatever feelings are coming up, to just literally be like, oh, that's okay. Like, let that go. Or try to move through that, like, recognize it and literally tell yourself, like, it's okay, or do whatever you need to kind of do. As if it was somebody else, when everybody else does things around you and you're very quick to be like, oh, that's okay, or that's good.
Yeah.
Which I actually don't like saying, because I don't be feeling like it's okay when people do certain things. But for you, be as kind to yourself as you would be to other people.
I think that's a great self-check. And to also apologize. Like, if it is something you can think of where you did make the mistake, apologize. And I don't think that you should forget to apologize to yourself too. Like, in these situations, like, apologize, make amends, like, make better decisions, and it's a new day.
Yeah, move through it.
Yeah.
That is true. Even with, like, client stuff, if it's like you ain't get something done, and you be feeling so bad, and you could just really just be like, you know what, I'm sorry, like, I didn't get that done, but I'll be on top of it. Or on the other side of that, with the people who work with me, and now being on the other side, I can always tell when, like, people are trying to, like, talk extra to, like, get around something or whatever. And it's like, you could just say, like, it's not done, and we can stop this meeting right now, stop wasting time. Like, I'm cool with that. Like, let's just be for real. But but then I notice how I feel when somebody does just be like, I'm sorry, I didn't really get to that, but XYZ. And it's like, okay, like, I don't actually, like, care that much. So it's easier, I think, for everybody when you just put things out there and can just be straightforward about it.
Just bite the bullet on that one.
Yeah.
Just bite the bullet. My mentor helped me learn that, like, because I would be avoiding emailing her back about something, and then she would have to call me, which would make it worse. And I would kind of talk around and dance around it. And she's like, Carlie, just tell me, like, hey, I missed this deadline. I'm going to send it to you on Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Once somebody calls you out a couple times, it's like, you might as well just do it.
Yeah.
So I thought that hearing about that was interesting for me because, like I said, I just never thought about guilt as an emotion or as something that had that much place, in my day to day. And so that made me just think about exploring it more and understanding that and the part that it plays in things being so ongoing and just not letting things go. Like, what things are you really carrying on to that you need to let go?
And for me, it's just a continual growth thing. I'm always, working on myself and thinking of ways to get better. And like I said, this just gives me more tools, I guess, to explore the things that I find and to continue to, be kinder to myself and forgive myself, especially with all this other nonsense going on. I think it's really important to take these moments of pause and just think through them.
So this week, think about yourself when you find yourself dozing off or what do you call it? Daydreaming is a better way to say that. Daydreaming, or if you get irritable with somebody, if you're generally just not feeling in a good mood, like, kind of take a moment to meditate, think about why, clear your headspace, and maybe do some research and look into guilt and how it shows itself, and see if that's something that may be a door for you to explore.
Yeah. And realizing that it's okay. You don't have to let all of those emotions overtake you, and just give yourself time to process.
And this week, our question is, what can you do today that you were not capable of doing a year ago?
Ooh. Let's see. What I would like to say is a handstand, but I'm still struggling with that. So,
a handstand, a regular handstand?
Yeah, just like to hold it. Like to hold, like that's a goal of mine. So hopefully, not hopefully, this time next year, I got y'all. But that's one that I'm working on for something. Man, there's a lot of growth here. I'm trying to narrow down which one. Do you have one that's top of mind?
What about, so something I can do today that I couldn't do a year ago. I don't know if it's couldn't or just didn't know. But couldn't do a year ago, I would say, is hiring people or like structure with work stuff. What can I do today that was not capable of a year ago? What was that last year? In 2019? Oh, no, I was pretty open then. I can't think of too many things. I'm trying to think of like some hard skills, but not too much. Probably just being able to spend more.
Yeah.
Spend more, do a little bit more.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I think there are some areas like in my business, like I've created enough systems and things where I'm able to actually expand and reach out to different clients that I probably wasn't ready for at this time last year. Just in having my own systems together and having the curriculum written down and everything in a way where I can actually send it out. So I've been doing a lot of work that way. Self-wise, like internal-wise, I think there's a lot of self-work I can do that I wasn't capable of last year just because I've been so consistent in my self-work. So I'm in better shape, like physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all of those things.
Do you feel like you keep getting in better shape?
Absolutely.
When is it over, though?
I don't know if it ever is. I think it's a lifelong journey.
That's real. Thank you for joining us, guys. Hit us up on at Carlie's Couch, at Carlie Carpio, or CC Fierce, at Lextopia. Let us know how you feel about the episode. Let us know what you can do today that you weren't capable of doing a year ago. And also hit us up, leave us 5 stars, a review, and let us know what types of things you may want to hear us talk about as well.
Bye, y'all.
See you.